This was a domestic terrorism training exercise in Milwaukee in 1999, one of more than 50 in the last 4 years. It brought together emergency responders from the public and private sector, those most immediately responsible for responding to nuclear, chemical, or biological events. It was an indication that while a terrorist attack was remote, our emergency responders were preparing for it.
In general, there's been an increased emphasis for the last several years on preparing for the possibility that a small group, not a nation, whether it be a domestic group or an international terrorist group, might use nuclear devices, nuclear isotopes as a contaminant or a poison, chemical devices such as nerve poisons as an attack agent, or biological agents to create havoc or create emergencies.
I think if in fact a terrorist would look at population and go for the highest population areas, then obviously, like I said, I think we're like maybe the third tier, but that doesn't mean from all of the information I have received that Milwaukee would be immune from an attempted terrorist attack. I don't think anyone in America totally has a sense of safety now as a result of September 11th, but I think that that's possible, and for that reason, if the whole purpose of terror is to create terror, then certainly cities the size of Milwaukee, Minneapolis, could be the object of a terror attack. We have our levels of alert. We go from level 1, which is the highest, to level 4, which is just above normal operations. And we're prepared to move to that. Obviously, we have a bomb squad. We've just purchased some suits from the federal government. It's like the second level that would deal with weapons of mass destruction, anthrax, different gases. We don't have one for every officer. They're extremely expensive. But we do have that. Obviously, if there were a situation as in New York, then the fire department would be the first responders.
A hazmat team now! A hazmat team now!
As Chief Jones said, the fire department and its hazardous materials team are the first responders to nuclear, biological, or chemical emergencies.
Well, Tom, we've worked very hard at being prepared and looking at these types of events ever since the Alfieri Mural building was blown up in Oklahoma City back in 1995. I think the whole fire service in America was put on alert. Milwaukee took the lead with the help of the state emergency management, and we dedicated ourselves towards being prepared for domestic terrorism. Obviously, what happened in New York is something that is preventable only prior to its occurrence. But we react to any of these situations, such as the anthrax scares that we have now, the biological scares that are out there now. We've worked on this since the early 1990s with the abortion clinic interference with business type activities, and we've dedicated ourselves to having an interagency cooperative effort with the health department, with emergency management, with the police department, with the FBI, and with the Milwaukee Fire Department playing a key role in being a responder and using all of the equipment to the best of our ability to help everybody in that respect.
We can address almost any foreseeable chemical or biological release. We deal in probabilities and possibilities. The probabilities we're well prepared and trained for. Many of the possibilities we've also addressed.
75 firefighters are also members of the hazardous materials team. Trained personnel with the equipment needed, including a tractor-trailer mobile unit to respond to radiation, chemical, and biological incidents.
It does function as a command post. If you go inside, there's a command center with resource material. We can get online from remote locations, accessing databases, other agencies that can help us out in the event of a hazardous materials release or a chemical event. The equipment that we carry, our own protective suits, our breathing apparatus, our communications equipment, our monitoring equipment. We have different monitors for different types of chemicals. different types of biological agents that we may face. We generally look at two different levels on the hazmat team, a level A and a level B. The level A is a fully encapsulated suit where the individual is zipped up into a full protective gear with his or her own breathing source. The radio, the communication links that's vital to their own safety is inside the suit. The suit is designed that nothing will come in to affect that person. The next level is level B. It's a little bit lower level of protection. They wear self-contained breathing apparatus, but it's a lighter suit. It's not completely sealed to the elements. It's kind of a splash suit, but it still gives them a level of protection to work in the environment. What the hazmat team does is match the level of protection to the hazard that they may be facing.
What about our fresh water supply? Lake Michigan is the source of water for the city and 14 other communities served by the Milwaukee Water Works. There are concerns about biological and chemical contaminants interrupting our drinking water supply.
That's not a scenario that I personally think is a very likely one. First, they'd have to find the right place to dump it, and our intakes are located well out into the lake, and we can hardly find them sometimes when we're looking for them, and we know where they are. And the sheer quantity of any substance that you would have to add to the intakes to make it all the way through the treatment process, and the vast amounts of water that we treat every single day, the sheer quantity is just enormous, and I don't think that's a likely thing that would happen.
Inside the Milwaukee Water Works, officials say security changes implemented before September 11th, combined with state-of-the-art filtration, make it among the nation's safest.
Well, Milwaukee Water Works has been thinking about security for a lot longer than since September 11th. About a year ago, we started taking a very serious look at the security of all of our facilities, of the treatment plants, of the booster stations, and of our other outlying facilities. And we actually had a complete vulnerability assessment performed in the spring of 2001. And that was a walkthrough that helped us identify what were called our critical assets, showed us where the strengths and weaknesses were of protecting those assets, and provided a security plan for us to upgrade and enhance the security that was there. We have physical security and we have electronic security. When the physical security is things that you think of that are physical barriers that would discourage or prevent people from getting into the facilities. The electronic security, again, consists of barriers to people, but it's also the continuous monitoring instrumentation that we have in our treatment processes. After the cryptosporidium outbreak, we spent about 5 years doing some significant upgrades to our water plants. And some of the significant parts of that were automation and continuous monitoring. So in places where we used to, for instance, get a grab sample of water once every 6 hours and test it manually, we now have an analyzer that every single second of every single day takes a water quality reading, archives that to a file, and has the data available to the plant operations staff. In the event that a critical water quality parameter would vary, an alarm would go off, the staff would be alerted, and they would take whatever steps they needed to deal with that. So those enhancements to the plant have really helped us phenomenally to deal with this recent terrorist threat. On the water treatment side, our business always has been to remove as many contaminants as we can from the water that comes into our process before they get to the consumers. So that is a job that we already did to 100% of our ability, and we haven't changed a thing for that since September 11th. We are so fortunate to have ozone as part of our treatment process. Ozone is a powerful disinfectant, and it will inactivate most microorganisms. Another barrier we have between contaminants in the lake and our customers is filtration, which is a physical removal process. So if a contaminant was a particulate, it could get physically removed in the filters at the treatment plant. So those are good things to have in your repertoire.
Responding to biological terrorism events is among the many public health services of the City of Milwaukee Health Department. Staff members have received special bioterrorism training at the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta. In addition to his role as City Health Commissioner, Dr. Foldy also serves as Milwaukee County Emergency Public Health and Environmental Services Director.
We have been trying to monitor disease as it passes through the community so that we are aware if there are aberrations. Our primary area of responsibility is going to be biological terrorism. If a new disease, an unusual disease, pops up in the community, we need to be on the alert to detect it, diagnose it, report it, move on.
Public and private health agencies in Milwaukee County have joined together in a surveillance network to speed recognition of any outbreak of diseases and coordinate a response.
Yeah, ServNet is our name for short of the agreement between all the local public health agencies in Milwaukee County to allow doctors and labs to report diseases to one site. So the Milwaukee Health Department is rapidly aware if there's a surge in reports from anywhere in the county of communicable disease. Then we as a team of local health departments help make sure that they're investigated and followed up on.
The Milwaukee Health Department has one of 4 laboratories in the state which are part of a state and national disaster preparedness plan. This includes rapid identification and analysis of biological or chemical agents through a federally funded bioterrorism preparedness laboratory.
Well, every day we work with naturally occurring threat agents, if you will, salmonella, TB, influenza. This is what we do day to day, as most microbiology labs do. So it's not a big leap to jump from there to unnatural occurring threat agents. Basically, you just need a few testing materials and proper lab conditions, and you can run those tests as well. Our TB lab, which we use daily, serves that purpose. So as necessary, we use the TB lab to perform those types of tests.
Dr. Foldy feels people should not be buying special equipment or trying to stockpile vaccines or special antibiotics.
We are stockpiling some medicines and other emergency supplies locally. We do not suggest that people keep antibiotics or gas masks at home for the following reasons. First of all, a gas mask is only good if it's on the moment you need it and if it is designed for the kind of threat you're facing and if it is designed to fit your very personal face. Antibiotics can be dangerous if stored at home. For one thing, the more people use antibiotics when they're not necessary, the more resistance by germs to antibiotics increases, the less the antibiotics work. Also, antibiotics can be poisonous or ineffective if they're kept too long. So, for this reason, we would like to be in a situation where we know what the threat is. We can create locations where people can obtain the appropriate therapy quickly and smoothly, and also make sure that there's enough for those who really need it rather than everybody hoarding in their own home. What's needed is a community organized response to these situations. Families will not be able to do it entirely for themselves.
The city's public health lab has been asked to analyze numerous suspicious substances that have turned out to be such things as sugar or coffee creamer. City officials say that's causing a capacity problem at the lab, and they are asking people to be alert, but be careful.
I'm not asking them to stop being vigilant or to not be concerned, but there are things that they can do to help. And making sure your mail is clean before you send it out, before you put it in the system, so that it doesn't cause alarm at the other end where you're mailing it. That's something that can help a lot.
What happens when we have these types of concerns, such as the anthrax scare, is that we create a capacity issue, and we want to make certain that those public health professionals can continue the job that they are brought here in the city of Milwaukee to do, and that is surveillance, to look at things like flu, tuberculosis, and other communicable diseases.
Dr. Foldy says Milwaukee children are more likely to die from chickenpox than by a biological agent, but there are some common sense things all of us can do to prepare for the unexpected.
We would really like to encourage the general public to prepare for a general disaster preparedness, the kind of preparedness that will serve you well in a biological attack, a chemical attack, or a tornado. And what we're talking about, first of all, is to create an emergency communication plan with your family. This is advice of the Red Cross. Establish a family meeting place outside the home in case of emergencies, should it come to that. And finally, every home should have really a very simple home disaster supply kit. It will allow you to evacuate if for any reason people are asked to evacuate. And remember, I'm not talking just about germ warfare, which is extremely unlikely to occur in Milwaukee. But a tank car accident, a toxic spill, or a tornado, all of these things are threats that we're kind of used to dealing with on a day-to-day basis, and these types of emergency preparations will serve everybody.
This was the first firefighting exercise away from the training academy for the class of September 2001. It gave the recruits a final opportunity to check the skills they acquired during 20 weeks of intensive training.
This gives us an opportunity to practice the real deal. Our recruits are very excited about it, and we're excited about it. It gives them a chance to fight a real fire in a real building.
Before getting to this point, the recruits have been challenged physically, mentally, and emotionally.
And we basically teach them what the fire service is all about. And as the training period goes on, we increase their learning to the point to where we're at now, so that they can work in teams. They know how to depend on each other for different functions of how to fight fires.
There were 29 recruits when this class began training in April. 23 made it through the rigorous and demanding program. They range in age from 19 to 39 and wanted to be firefighters and emergency medical technicians for a variety of reasons.
Profession, give back to your community, hard work, you know, just doing something good I want to do. Tense work, very tense, just not physical, also mentally, and gotta be there on time, physically shaped, mentally. You gotta know what you're doing. Like you say, if you don't, you're gonna hurt someone else, you're gonna hurt yourself.
Anything that surprised you during the training?
No, sir. Nothing surprising. You just gotta get 110%, sometimes even more.
You're looking forward to the real thing upon graduation?
I am looking for the real thing. Get out there in the real field and see if, help my fellow firefighters out there and give them a helping hand also.
When I was in high school, I was involved in a fire intern program. It was a firefighting class in high school. I took that class and I moved on to get my degree in fire science, firefighter one in my EMT. And I was actually a rough carpenter by trade, and I drove past Menominee Falls Fire Department, and they were wanting volunteers. So I volunteered out there for 6 years, and I have also been trying to get on fire departments all around, but my main goal is to get on Milwaukee Fire Department. It is the best fire department in the state, and I just want to be a part of it. The training is very intense. Mentally, physically, emotionally. They hit you from all angles. You have to really work hard and just give it 110%, and you shouldn't have a problem making it through it. Can't wait to get into the real thing. Also, I'm, a little under the edge because we're going to go to a different atmosphere and have to work together with other firefighters. And you're obviously a cub, so you're coming in at the bottom level and have to, work net as a team and perform your duties as a team.
But it's what you've been looking for.
Yes, definitely. It's what I've waited my whole life for, actually. I've been trying a long time. I'm just happy to be here.
For safety reasons, no flammable liquids are used in the training exercise. Old mattresses provide all the flames and smoke that's necessary. But veterans are on hand to help out if the fires would get out of control. Firefighting accounts for only about a fourth of the department's activity. Each graduate is also an emergency medical technician in a profession that is seeing constant change.
It's more dangerous. We're looking at different kind of building construction. We're looking at different kind of materials that, when they burn at certain temperatures, emit, hazardous, toxic chemicals. So we're dealing with a lot of hazards that we didn't deal with 30 or 40 years ago. When they graduate out of the Fire Academy, they are trained Firefighter 1 and state-trained Firefighter 2s. They are trained hazmat specialists. They get 24 hours of training on hazmat. They are trained state-certified EMTs, and they are ready to go.
You still need ventilation up there? Can I shut that down?
Very special skills.
For many of these new members of the department, it's something they've looked forward to for years. The only woman in the class, Jenny Reed, is a third-generation firefighter. About half of the group took part in the department's Fire Cadet program. Others are changing professions.
I had a brother that went through the fire cadet program, and I have a father that's under the fire department right now. So I kind of follow footsteps and always wanted to be a firefighter. The fire cadet program helped me tremendously for the recruit class. It made it a lot easier to swing because in the fire cadet program, we train just as much as we had trained for a recruit class. We just didn't do live fire training. I don't know too many people that can do this training. It's very, very tough. Like I said, day in, day out, constant, on your feet, running, chopping, putting up ladders, laying out holes, getting with the fire, taking the heat, taking the smoke. It's very tough, so. And then it's also academic. You have to be mentally challenged in this program too as well.
I pursued a career in carpentry. I went through the carpentry school, and I just wasn't getting the fulfillment from the carpentry as I did when I was in the Marine Corps, because I like the fact that I'm able to help people and do something that someone else may not be able to do for themselves. I just like the camaraderie that's built in military-style organizations. Being prior Marine Corps, I was expecting something tough, and physically I'd say this is very close to what the Marine Corps put me through.
You looking forward to the real thing?
Well, a good day is most likely a slow day, because that means nothing's going wrong in the city. But yes, if I can help someone, I do enjoy helping other people in the ways I can. I'm very well prepared. We are trained very well here. They are very thorough with all of our training, and we go through the evolutions repetitively, so it is instilled within us to be able to do anything and everything that's asked of us here.
The fire department says the training programs are efficient and effective, and that residents can be proud of the men and women of the Milwaukee Fire Department and what they do.
Citizens of the city are getting the best product. I think we have one of the best fire departments in the country. I think we're also one of the safest fire departments, and I think the citizens of Milwaukee are getting a fantastic bang for their buck.
Domestic violence is really all-encompassing. First of all, let me tell you that domestic violence can occur between anybody who's in an intimate relationship, whether they're dating or married or they live together, between parent and child, child and parent. It is really any love relationship where somewhere the love has gone wrong, I suppose you would say. Domestic violence can be physical violence, it can be emotional violence, it can be mental abuse, financial, it can be isolating someone they love from their loved ones and their peers. This is usually a tactic used so that the victim is unaware of how truly wrong a relationship has gone.
The Milwaukee Commission on Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault responds to the problem with what's known as a coordinated community response. 31 members, professionals in the field of domestic violence, and members of the community to deal with a public health problem that may affect as many as 1 in 4 people.
We're extraordinarily lucky in Milwaukee to be on the forefront of domestic violence and sexual assault prevention. And I suppose that would be one of the goals. One of the goals is to provide better services all around the community to victims of domestic violence and sexual assault, and also to hold perpetrators accountable.
Many people who are in the midst of domestic violence and sexual assault obviously think about it all the time, but I think some of us forget about people who have these kinds of problems, and it may be a relative, it may be in your immediate family, it may be a friend or a neighbor, and I think we all have to get more involved to help these people, and that's why the recognition of the month of October.
The commission was created by the Common Council. Alderwoman Breyer represents her colleagues on the commission.
This is a coalition of people who have all the resources to help. And I think that without that, we would be in a state of disarray as far as domestic violence goes. And I would encourage anybody, we have public that stop into our meetings, and they're the third Thursday of every month. We actually have had people in from other states that have monitored what we do. And the reason we're getting state and federal funding for things is because we are doing a good job.
Victims should know that they are not alone. You can call 286-2997 for advice and take other steps as well.
We always encourage a victim to tell someone, to get help. There are several, even if you look in the phone book under domestic violence, there are several agencies. Sojourner Truth House is one agency that has a 24-hour emergency number. So is Milwaukee Women's Center. Call just to talk, even if you're not ready to leave a relationship.
What can all of us do to help victims of abuse?
What to do is to talk to the person, to ask if you can help, to maybe note that there's a problem in a very gentle way, to not be put off if they approach you in a less than congenial manner because they're frightened. Certainly to let them know you're there for them. If you hear something next door going on, if you hear violence, yes, because there's a reason that that person is not reporting themselves. And certainly it is your business, and that's what we want to stress. Domestic violence is everybody's business.
Today's tour will take us through downtown to the lakefront, ending in the Milwaukee Art Museum. And the streetscape will tell us the history of the city along the way, with special emphasis on the commercial history. And the reason for that is commerce, which is really the flow of goods and people, is the reason why cities exist. This is the Plankington Arcade. It was finished in 1916 as a two-story shopping arcade. And as you can see with the skylight, the natural lighting really showed off the wares.
Meatpacker John Plankington is among the many early pioneers you'll learn about on this tour. This report highlights just some of the stops on what is a 2-hour tour.
The iron block building that dates from 1860. Now this is that era of the wealthy entrepreneurs who want to show off their wealth. But actually in this building, it was not extremely expensive to do this highly ornamented Italianate building because the facade is made of cast iron. When we give historical tours, we normally call buildings by their first name. There are always exceptions to every rule. And this was the Marine Bank at the time that the building was constructed in 1960. And this is downtown Milwaukee's first glass curtain wall skyscraper. We are surrounded right now by 4 buildings that all come from that era of those early entrepreneurs and their accumulation and demonstration of wealth. And I want to start with what I think is the grandest of them, the Mitchell Building. And this was done in the late 1870s. We call the style Second Empire. Its key feature is, it comes from France, the style is, its key feature is that mansard roof. It's also usually highly ornamented. In order to have commerce grow in a community, you needed those water routes for transportation in the early years, and you needed financing and banking. And the bank that stood there was the key to the banking and financing of the early years of Milwaukee. Now, the Chamber of Commerce is not what we think of as the chamber today. It existed for the trading of grain, which was a major enterprise here. Originally, these were 2 bank buildings built side by side, finished just a year apart in the late 1850s, and then they were joined, as you can see at the roof line, into one building around the turn of the century, and we call it the Insurance Exchange Building. This is called either the Loyalty Block Building or Northwestern Mutual Life. It was built to be a home office for Northwestern Mutual Life. Then next, a group of insurance companies called the Loyalty Group took it over when Northwestern Mutual Life moved out for a bigger and better home office. This building was constructed in 1885, 1886, and for that time, this building, like its name, Loyalty Block, I mean, it is a large block, and we need natural lighting. So you can see why you needed this light court. And now what we're entering is that era of urbanization and urban growth, which means the skyscrapers.
Skyscrapers like the Pabst office building, built in 1892 at Wisconsin and Water, site of Solomon Juneau's original cabin. It was replaced by the 100 East building in 1981. Just to the east, the Wells building and the Railway Exchange building, Milwaukee's first high-rise steel frame office building.
Now, many of the capitals, not just of the two buildings we're seeing, but many other early skyscrapers, were made of terracotta, and eventually the water got into little cracks, freeze started to cause big cracks, and the tops had to come down for safety reasons. This is one of these kinds of downtown spaces that I really appreciate, and I think a lot of downtowns have these little hidden garden spaces where you have a retreat from the busyness of the downtown life. And we are in the garden of the 411 building. Our federal building, it was completed in 1899 to house the post office, courthouse, and the customs. And it still continues today to have the courthouse. This is another Richardsonian Romanesque. We've got that Roman arch, we've got that heavy, massive feel, and for ornamentation here, can you see the dragons? And you see carved heads. Okay, the building behind me, again, known by its historical name, is Northwestern National Insurance Company. It was finished in 1906, and you see the classical references in this facade. As we wait for the light to change, you can be taking in the Wisconsin Gas Building, which is the next one I'll talk about. It was finished in 1930. But this is our last skyscraper before that kind of construction ends until post-World War II. Style here is Art Deco. Now, if you turn around and look at the international style First Wisconsin Center. The First Wisconsin building was completed in 1973, and it is Wisconsin's tallest building at 42 stories high. This is Northwestern Mutual Life, one of the largest individual life insurance companies in the United States. The company started out here in Wisconsin in 1857. And this is the home office that they had built in 1914. It's a classical revival style. Those grand stately Corinthian columns are a trademark of this company. Our tour will finish inside the Art Museum. Santiago Calatrava is a Spanish architect who is well known for a number of buildings in Europe and a few sprinkled elsewhere in the world. The Milwaukee Art Museum edition is his first U.S. commission for a building. Calatrava uses white. He likes curved lines. He likes the play of light and shadow. He likes the contrast with the blue of the lake and the blue of the sky. And in this building we have what I call nautical references. To many of us, these are like the ribs inside a whale. And if we had been standing on top of the Kaler edition, this looks like a ship from outside.
The Downtown Through the Eras tour is offered Tuesday through Sundays through October 28th, starting at 10:15. It will resume again next spring. There is a small fee. Call Historic Milwaukee for further information.
I think it's important both for our out-of-town visitors and for our local residents to gain an appreciation not only of one city's history and architecture, but it tells the story that fits in throughout our country so that we have a better understanding of who we are and where we've come from.